Hello everyone. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here with all of you to kick off this first session of Rhea's network collaboration with this virtual book session, where I'm going to discuss some highlights from my book, Leading Gracefully. So let's look at what our objectives are for today's session. So first, I'm going to start off with just an overview on the current state of affairs as it relates to gender diversity across the board. And then we're going to look at one of the biggest leadership challenges that women face, which prevents them from advancing in their careers. And then I'm going to talk about the feminine leadership model as a new leadership approach that women can use to increase their effectiveness as leaders. And I'll share some practical applications on how you can apply the model to address those leadership challenges. And at the end, we'll leave about 20 minutes for some Q&A. But first, I wanted to start off by sharing a personal story with you about how I came into this work, and it has to do with my great-grandmother, Maritza. This is one of the few photos I have of her. I unfortunately never had the chance to meet her while she was alive. Maritza was a survivor of the Armenian genocide that took place in eastern Turkey at the beginning of World War I. This was the first genocide of the 20th century, where more than 1.5 million Armenians were killed by the Ottoman Turks. One of the horrific methods used during this genocide was that they would take people from their homes and villages and deport them into the Syrian desert, which is what happened to my great-grandmother. She watched as her family members were killed in front of her and then deported, along with 3 small children, into the desert, where they were forced to walk until they either died from exhaustion or were killed in a brutal way along the journey. She lost 2 of her small children in that desert. But as luck would have it, she found out that a group of men were plotting to escape the death walk in the middle of the night. And she begged to go along with them. They refused, saying that she would just slow them down, and she had a small child and she was a woman. But somehow she convinced them and managed to escape with this group of men in the middle of the night. They ended up walking through the desert at night until they arrived to Syria, where they luckily found refuge. If it wasn't for Maritza's bravery and her resilience and her strength to survive, I would not be here giving this talk today. So I'm eternally grateful for God's grace and her will to survive. It was this strength that I found within myself that day that I had to climb a 40-foot tree during a leadership training program. I talk about this story in my book, but I thought I'd share it again because it truly was one of the biggest turning points in my life. On the 3rd day of our first week together, they took us into a redwood forest over in Northern California to partake in a ropes course. Now, the first challenge was to climb a 40-foot redwood tree with nothing but a harness in case you fell off, and then walking along wooden plank, where the only way down was to jump off it. So as I stood there looking at the tree, the only words that were going through my head at that moment were, no way. There is no way I'm getting up that tree. I can't. And one by one,